we're so excited, Caviar Dreamers. We have an amazing guest today.
We do. Someone I'm very excited for you to hear her incredible stories.
I know, Michelle Rosenfeld of Rosenfeld Gallery. She has discovered the most amazing artists from Basquiat to, Keith Haring. She was involved with him. Andy Warhol. She has sold the most amazing paintings for hundreds of millions of dollars. She happens to be my neighbor, my good friend. She is a rough, tough cream puff. And so fabulous. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, honey. Nice to see you today.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, on this rainy morning, we had to, brighten it up for you gals that are home.
I know. You're a blonde bombshell,
Yeah.
and you know how we feel about our blondes.
Blonde. Anybody out there wants to copy us, you can do it too.
I know. We weren't born this way, and we didn't wake up this way. Just so you know.
That's for sure.
I know. Well, I'm so excited because Michelle, you really were an innovator in your industry. What year did you start
I guess
being an art dealer?
What happened was this. I went to Emerson College.
What year was that?
I don't know the years. We're not going to get into years. We're not talking about how old I am or how much I weigh.
Okay.
Let's
Fine.
be nice.
We're just gonna say
What's the
yes.
difference when I went? I went like everybody else at my age. You want to be a teacher. You got to have security. You got to have some kind of something to fall back on. You don't want to get married for a meal ticket. So what are you going to do? In my day and age, they became teachers. I became a speech therapist. Instead of making $10 an hour, they made $35 an hour. I studied to be a speech therapist. What did I love? What was my passion? Art. My father collected art. He'd go to these different little auctions and buy things. He met Raphael Sawyer and this one and that one. Nobody that famous, but he loved art. His European background, his father used to go to the opera and get paid to clap. They all loved music and art. My father really wanted to be an actor, but he got married, and then he went into the war, and when he came back, he went into photography because he had done that in the war. Anyway, getting back to my story, he said, you have to have something that's practical. But I love the art, and that was always my minor. Now, in high school, in my art class, believe it or not, we had a class, and I said to the art teacher, am I talented? He said, you're not talented in what you draw. You're talented in your eye, because you, of all the people in the class, picked out Sheila Berger. Who's Sheila Berger? She married Tom Wolfe. Where'd she marry Tom Wolfe? She met him at the magazine, I think Esquire. He was writing, and she was the art director. So, she made, we had a still life. You know how most people do in normal still life? A nice bowl of fruit, some flowers, a parakeet, a dog, if you can keep them still. Meanwhile, she did the pipes on the ceiling. And I said to the teacher, of all the paintings, her painting is really something. I love it. I love those pipes, the way she did them. They're so tubular. They almost look as if they're real. He said, you know what? You have an eye for art. Don't try to paint, but if you're ever interested, you could help pick out art because you really appreciate it. So I kept that in the back of my mind, and I minored in art history and graduated Emerson with 18 credits to teach, 18 credits in speech therapy, 18 credits in drama, 18 credits in art, because I became a good student. How did I become a good student? Well, I almost flunked my test freshman year in Dr. Crook's class. I had been doing my nails, talking on the phone, and doing my homework all at the same time. And I was getting C's, so I didn't give a damn. Now I'm in Boston, and that doesn't work so well. Instead of C, the guy gives everybody in the class a D. My father said, if you think I'm going to pay as much for you to go to Emerson as your brother going to Harvard, forget about it. You'll come home, you'll go to Hofstra, you'll go to Adelphi, your mother and I miss you so much, so we'll get you a car. And I thought, oh my God, I know all the boys in Long Beach. I don't want to go back there and date. I want to stay in Boston. I've got to learn how to study. So I go out on a study date, and the guy says, we're not going to talk for an hour or two. We're going to the library. I said, what do I do if I don't talk for an hour or two? Well, I followed what he said, and then I started getting 95, 99, 100. Now that I knew how to study, I graduated. I got a scholarship to Columbia. I took the speech therapy scholarship, thinking that's what I would do, and that with the money I would save, I would collect art. Meanwhile, at Columbia, I see these people in the art department. They're downstairs. They They can't buy lunch, they have no money, but they're professors at Columbia teaching. And one does 9-foot sculptures in marble, another one does gorgeous paintings. They do all kinds of innovative things, but they don't really know how to sell. And I have a lot of enthusiasm. They said, look, Saturdays we have a gallery. Why don't you bring your friends and your relatives and see if they'll buy, because you appreciate what we did. So I start selling the art, and it's like everybody I bring buys something.
And were they paying you a commission?
They were paying me a commission, started as a business. A lot of times instead of a commission, I would take a sculpture. I would take an artwork. Because they didn't have a lot of money, so, a lot of times I would just take whatever they were making, because I love the art anyway. And my husband, I was married already, so he was paying the rent, which is always a good thing if you're doing any new business or anything, that doesn't pay. Have somebody earning a living, right?
Right, Bella.
She knows.
Yeah, she knows.
Yeah.
We earn the living, and we
That's
support
right.
her.
So you get the food and the water you need.
Yes.
Anyway, jumping ahead.
Yeah. So wait, I just want to ask you a few questions. So then you decided maybe you're not going to do speech therapy, and did you decide like, this could be for me? I could start dealing in art. I love to work with these artists. It's creative. What made you start doing that? Like,
Well,
how did you get into that?
The thing is, after having the scholarship and studying a paramedical field from the head, neck, and trunk, and studying and all this, I think I have to pass my exams. So I studied with 2 other girls all summer. We passed a paramedical exam. I worked at Montefiore Hospital. I worked at different hospitals in New York. And I enjoyed children, and I enjoyed getting them, to wabbit for rabbit and stuttering and all these different things. But my passion was the art. So I started doing both. I started doing a little of both. And I've been to lectures at Harvard and other places. If you have a job, you don't give up your main job before you put your toe in the water. So I advise anybody out there, if you have a passion, but you don't think you can make a living at it, hold on to your 9 to 5 and push yourself to work those extra hours on what you love. The point is, if you can, keep the 9 to 5 job, and then, from that, move on to the other, which is what I did. I used to have a little car accident here and there around New York, so that convinced my husband it was worth $20 an hour. I found some retired policeman or someone else to drive my car around. I had a funny Irishman who said, if it's raining soup, I'd be carrying a fork.
That's
And he was the only Irishman, 6'4", who was afraid of his own rear end. I'd come out of an art opening, everybody's limo was there. My limo happened to be a Cadillac 3 years old that I owned, but it was black and it looked good.
Yes.
So he's sitting in it, but he's nowhere to be found. I say, Jerry, where are you? On the phone. Oh, I had to move. I'd get a ticket. I said, all your family are policemen. You don't have a police badge? You're the only schlemiel, not in line.
Not in line,
What's
waiting
going
for you.
on
You'd
here?
have to
It's
go around the
raining.
corner.
Come back. Oh, God, I have stories up the gazoo.
So
But
what-
I had wonderful people I worked with.
What was
Anyway.
your first big piece of art? What was your first famous piece of artwork? What was it like? Oh my God,
I'm
I know.
going to interrupt and go back to high school because
Okay.
I found this picture. It's 100 years old. I'm dressed up like a Dutch girl, Boldoot perfumes, and it's the governor of New York then, Nelson Rockefeller, and Governor Wagner. And my grandmother, who was like 4 feet tall and 4 feet wide, she had a friend who was from Holland that played cards with her. And the Holland woman from Holland, this was her perfume company, and she said, I would like to hire your granddaughter. I was in high school. She says, I think that the dress she wore to her brother's bar mitzvah, she showed her a picture, a white organdy dress with a big blue cummerbund, which of course I got wholesale, and I wore it to be this Dutch girl. So here, I have this bottle of perfume, and I'm giving it to Mayor Wagner, and then Governor Rockefeller comes by, and I say, and I want to present one to you. So Mayor Wagner says, well, you just gave it to me. So Governor Rockefeller says, what are you going to do? How are you going to do this? You only have one bottle. I said, well, I gave it to him. I'll take it back and give it to you. They thought that was so funny. I mean, I didn't know what else to say. I just
No,
figured
of course not.
move the goods around because neither one are going to use the perfume.
No,
right?
of course not. Exactly.
Meanwhile, it made the newspapers, and they thought that I was Governor Rockefeller's new daughter-in-law because the son went to Europe and came back with a Swedish wife or girlfriend. So it was a really nice mix-up. That was like my first toe in the water that maybe I would like to be in the limelight. But you know, here's my advice. Here's the real important thing of this podcast. My advice is, what is your passion? What do you love to do? Because if you're just doing something to, you know, make a living, pass the time, it's okay if you have to make a living. But if you're living with your parents, or you have a husband, or you're not dependent on your income, and you can figure out a way to pursue what you love to do, that's really the way to make a success. Because I was definitely obsessed with the art world. You also need a gene. Like, people tell me goodbye, they hang up on me, they like close it. It doesn't bother me. Something wrong with me. But for a good salesperson, it's great. I look at it this way. You have a bagel. There's a hole in the bagel. Right now, that's what you have, the hole, right? Okay. If I approach you, and I'm in a restaurant alone, on a trip, and I see a nice-looking woman, interesting, like you, with the glasses and the whole thing, I might go and say, I love your glasses. You say, oh, thank you. And I'll say, you know what, I'm eating alone. Would you like to join me?
Yes, I would join you.
Okay. But someone might say to you, no, I really like to eat alone. I say, okay, fine. Doesn't bother me. But if she ate with me, now I have part of the bagel. And the same with sales or selling my art. If I approach someone and they hung up, so they hung up. It doesn't bother me. Or if I went to someone at an auction, it didn't bother me. And most of the time, people are curious. Most of the time, people are more receptive than you think they would be. I saw Steve Martin, the actor, bidding on a Cy Twombly, and I knew I had the same date, the same period of Cy Twombly painting in my apartment to sell. And when he didn't get it, I went over to him and I said, I got a better one, and I'll give it to you for less money. He looked at me like I'm some kind of nutcase, right?
Yes.
At the time, I had very curly hair. I looked like that girl he was dating, and I was about 20 pounds thinner and about 100 years younger.
Who was he dating? Peters?
He was, Bernadette Peters.
Bernadette Peters. He was dating Bernadette Peters.
And that's how, I don't have the picture here with Andy Warhol, but when I did the Andy Warhol portrait, I had my hair very, very tight curls. So anyway, he said, all right, I'll take a look. Where do I have to go? I said, well, I have a car downstairs. My driver actually smoked a lot, and also he was in a band. So he drove for me in the day, smoked weed when no one was looking, and he was in a band at night. He was another one. I'd go downstairs, 50-50, he'd be there. Everybody else was
Yes, everybody else would be
what are you going to get for $20 an hour? I mean, I wasn't going to get a professional. Anyway, Steve Martin gets in the car. We go up to, from the 60s, from Christie's, it was 59th Street, we go up to 82nd Street where I had an apartment. And I talked my husband into, taking it for an art gallery. So I get him up there, and he doesn't say a god-darn word. The whole time, you think he's funny? Doesn't talk.
Not so funny.
So if somebody doesn't talk, it's like now. I can just keep going all the way to China. I can keep rolling. I got stories up to gazoozits. And I say to him, look, Steve, I really don't have a painting. I got 10 teenage girls that are waiting for your autograph. Doesn't crack a smile. I keep talking about art, about jokes, about anything. Nothing. We get in there, I open the door, there's nothing there. He sees the painting, he likes the painting. How much is it? I give him a good price. He says, can I get a discount? I said, I gotta call my husband, he's my partner. I call my husband, he says, absolutely not. You're selling it for less than Larry Gagosian, and he knows Larry Gagosian. The one at Larry's is 20% more than the auction, and the one at auction just made a new high price. I hang up the phone, I said, I'll tell you what. He can't fire me, we're married, right?
Yes.
But I can give you like maybe 5 or 10%. I'll give you 10% or 5%, I don't know what I gave him something. I said, but here's the caveat. When my kids are off for the holidays from college, I want to bring them up to your apartment. And I want to take, at that time, Polaroids we took. Polaroids, a Polaroid camera. I said, I want to bring them up and I want a Polaroid picture with you, with each of my children. All right, as long as you don't stay too long.
Wow,
I said
Johnny Social. That's
yeah. I got done with Steve Martin, and I started doing a little modeling junior year. They decided I looked like a bride, so they wanted to give me a contract, and my father said, absolutely not, you'll never go back to college and finish, and he was right. So I didn't do that.
So what did you sell that side Twombly for to Steve Martin?
I think around 300,000.
300,000.
Yeah.
300,000.
300.
What was your big?
I'm not good with numbers. That's why my husband's a perfect partner. I know every story. I know what they said. I know what they ate for lunch. I know what they were wearing. I know every detail. I know the painting they like. 10 years later, I'll go back and say, I got it. It finally came available. I think the first thing is when you do your house, if you're not looking to do an investment, buy something that you love. You walk in, it makes you happy. It lifts you up. And what lifts you up may bring somebody else down.
But Michelle, I just want to ask you, which I want to talk about people and their artwork, because people don't know how to choose artwork for their house, which I think is so important. Like, I love black and white photography. I like, and then I like color on certain things. So I love that you had said that, because listen, I go to people's houses and I'm just like, they're missing artwork, or they cop out and they get something cheesy. And I think it's so important to show people's personality. So I think that's very great that you're telling people that they have to buy something they love.
Buy what you love. If you're really going to do this as an investment, get someone to help you, because this has to be followed 24/7. And get somebody through a recommendation. Somebody who's made money with them, somebody who trusts them. I told people, that were I've traveled all over the United States, and sometimes people were in LA or Texas, and if they weren't gonna come to New York, I'd say, look, I'll find you somebody good there. I don't care, I'll just give you a name. And that person would refer people to me. Honesty is the best policy. I had somebody come to me. It was a famous person at the time. I'm trying to remember if it was the Reebok. I dealt with Paul and Phyllis Fireman, who owned Reebok, and sold them fabulous paintings. And I'm trying to remember, I think somebody said, oh, don't, get a different curator who doesn't own a gallery. There might be a conflict of interest. So a year later at an art fair, I think he came over and he said, Herbert, Michelle, what do you think? I may buy this painting of swimmers. And I think it was from the Canadian gallery, who's an A+ gallery, a competitor of mine, but also someone I've worked with. And I was very honest. I said, it's a great painting. The price is fair. It's totally a full price, but it's the kind of painting that will hold its value. It's not a bag of feathers. Buy the painting. The point is, that was a sale of millions of dollars that I just said, I didn't say, no, I can get you a better one, because I knew the painting was rare. And I knew he'd be making good investment. And being honest and giving the right advice comes back in any business. You know that.
Yes. What was your first big sale when you're like, shit, this is the business for me? Oh my God, I can't believe I sold this painting.
Well,
do you remember your first big sale?
My first big sale might have been $500 out of the trunk of my car. I was just happy that I zeroed into what you like for over the couch. It wasn't about money. It was kind of like you go on blind dates and you hate everybody and you finally get somebody you can talk to. So if I could figure out what you wanted in your house, I was elated. It was like a high. It was like an orgasm, for Christ's sake. In terms of money, it built up. We sold things for millions and this and that. So,
tell me, you have a great story about Keith Haring.
Well, Keith Haring I met at the very beginning, just like I met Basquiat at the very beginning. And Keith Haring, I went with Smoke, my driver, down to Canal Street somewhere in Chinatown or wherever, like the Bowery where he lived. And I walked up like 4 flights, and I get upstairs, and I see there's a tent in the middle of the living room. And he says, yeah, that's where we sleep. I said, you sleep in the tent? You're in an apartment. Why don't you just sleep in a bed? He said, what, are you stupid? Look at the ceiling. You see, it's all cracked. It falls down on our head at night. So we have to sleep in a pup tent in the middle of the floor. The mattress is in there. And at that time, I think it was 1981, and he was living with a gorgeous black guy named LA2. And that's who he started painting graffiti with, LA2 and Keith Haring. But they, like every partnership, broke up, and Keith went on to become probably the second most important graffiti artist there was.
Yes.
That day I bought 4 pieces, India ink on paper, and they were $250 each. He would not take
Wow.
a check. So for $1,000 I bought 4 of them. Today they're worth about $250,000 a piece.
Wow. $1 million for $1,000.
When I gave him the check, he said, I'm not taking a check. Everyone is bouncing checks on me. You'll have to go to the bank, go with your driver, go get me cash. So I had to go and get the check cash, come back to get the pieces. So the driver, Smoke, who also happened to be a good-looking black musician, said, you must really be crazy. You're giving $1,000 cash for this junk?
That's so funny.
This junk,
Did
everybody
Keith
said-
Haring ever live to see his
Yeah,
fortune? Did he
yeah.
live to see his fortune, Keith Haring?
Oh yeah, he lived to see his fortune. I think, but you know, not as much as they are today. Look, maybe instead of $250, they were worth $25,000. Now they're
Not what they were.
No.
Not what they are now. That's what I'm
And the
saying.
licensed brand.
And the licensed brand.
Jean-Michel Basquiat, who I also went to,
Yes, I know.
and I bought things for $2,500. They're now at auction for $100 million, $80 million, $100 million. I mean, it's crazy how that went up. And I put some in our foundation and sold some. I mean, I thought I was brilliant if I got, you know, $4 or $5 million for something I paid $18,000 for.
You are brilliant.
Yeah,
That's
well,
pretty brilliant.
You know what? It's like great stocks. You don't always get out at the end. You can't, you know, bulls make money, bears make money, and pigs go to slaughter. So at some point, you cash in if you want the cash flow. If you're doing a business where you need cash flow, and you have to pay taxes. In those days, we were paying 50% taxes. And one of the pictures I have here is with my daughter, and she was also extremely helpful. She worked in the gallery with me in the beginning.
Was it hard to raise children and have such a big career? Because I always say it's very hard to have it all. You can have it all, but not at the same time. You can have a beautiful family and children and a big career, but not
It comes
always
with
at
a
the
little
same
price.
You
moment.
are 110% right. If I had it to do over, I would have waited till they were 5, 6, 7. I was so afraid that my brain was going to mush that I had to get started with this art business. I should have really, in retrospect, I would advise you, and I would advise myself, that I should have stayed home and given them more nurture. How they turned out, good, great, it's a miracle.
No.
It's a miracle. I had leeway, I had help in the house, but if I had it to do over, or if you're trying to start a business, try to start it part-time in your house. Try to be with those kids.
It's hard. You know what? It's hard. And I think women are so conflicted, and I do think, you know, you can have a career in children, but it is hard because you have mom guilt, you have this,
A
you
lot of guilt.
it's very complicated. I think men don't feel it, and I don't want to as much as we do.
Men actually don't feel it at all. I don't
No,
think.
I don't think
Just
they.
going off my husband
Yeah, they
for
go
sure.
to work, they
Yeah.
leave, you know, and we...
And I think women, you know, and everyone's like, well, how do you do it all? How could you have it all? You can't have it all at the same time.
No, there's
It's
a
very,
trade-out.
very hard, and you're going to pay a price. I couldn't help myself. If I could have controlled myself, you know, people that are passionate.
I agree.
Artists, they don't sell anything for years. They're painting every day like a son of a gun. Well, they have a mother. Or
You
a
couldn't stop the
I
momentum
couldn't
because the
stop
art world was
myself.
happening, and
Yeah.
I understand it.
Pulls you in. It's like you're going to do this or you're going to lose it. Eventually, I set up this little gallery in an apartment house, and then when my husband came in the '80s, when Keith Haring and Basquiat were hot, he left a big business. He says, I want a regular art gallery. So we opened a regular art gallery on 16 East 79th, where I was for like 40 years. And he said, where are the good paintings? Show me, you know. So we started to sell Picasso, Leger, Miro. We flew to Geneva to vaults that were locked up in a free zone. And that free zone, tax-free zone, is a place that people keep gold bullion, they keep cars, collectible cars, they kept paintings. I mean racks of paintings, like racks, like 150 paintings here, 200 paintings there, and that's like their investment. And and this belonged to a certain gallery also, and we started working with them, and we had a lot of success with them because we had people like you that we knew socially that wanted a Picasso, and we would work on a very small profit. We believed in the McDonald's philosophy: sell a lot, make 10% over and over and over.
It's true.
Yeah, well, it's not
Volume,
true
no,
forever.
but volume. But no, but I agree. You do a high volume business.
Creditors, they have a painting, they hold it, they want to make 50%. So you're waiting months or years to sell the painting. If we were making 10, 20%, you could move it a lot quicker for a fair price. A lot of the paintings I sold, actually I got back years later. And I would say to people, you know, you're like a bank vault. If I sell you something valuable and a good price, and in 5 or 10 years you don't want it, please give it back. I want to resell it. And we made a lot of money that way because people would come back to us if we could get them instead of them going to the auction house. It was a very exciting life, very fast paced.
But you're still in it. Your son now has
I'm
Rosenfeld
in it.
Gallery.
My son has a gallery. My daughter has a nice collection of a few paintings, a Monet, a Renoir, a couple of Picasso drawings. She said, you know, your people make so much money holding paintings. Why should I knock myself out selling them? Let me just keep them for 10 years. And if you buy blue chip, like a blue chip stock, you know, something blue chip, Picasso is not going to disappear. You know, it may not rise like Basquiat from 2,500 to 100 million, but you also take a chance on the 10 other graffiti artists that were 5,000. Today you can't get 500.
Let me ask you a shady question. Who do you think's an overrated artist? Who do you think isn't that talented but people think is so amazing?
Well, I'm not gonna, you know, I don't like to
You could say, oh, just say it, Michelle.
You know what? I don't want to do negatives, but I will tell you this. If you go through an airport and you see bright paintings by somebody, and they're on pocketbooks, and they're on luggage, and they're everywhere you look, I mean, he's the best promoter I've ever met. Brito.
Yeah,
Okay?
Brito. I agree.
He's the best promoter you've ever met. He's probably rich as could be. And I admire him for the decoration and his artwork as decorative. But when people say, "Oh, I just spent 25,000 on a Brito," I go, "Oh,
Oh
God."
my, yeah. Why spend 25,000 on that?
There's no resale market. They won't even resell them in his gallery. So he gives a lot of paintings away. He's very philanthropic. He gives them to children's hospitals and puts them on buildings, and he's made himself a fabulous career. But something like that is not something that I feel is really
Art.
The kind of art that comes from here. I think he looked at the art world, picked
It was
the right
commercial.
colors,
It's very commercial.
and he picked from different artists and created his own style, which is very commercial, and I give him credit for it, but you know, I don't admire that.
No, exactly. You know who else was like that? Charles Fazzino. You know who Fazzino is?
I
It was
know
that
the name.
three-dimensional
I know the
artwork.
name.
My son always wanted something from him, and I was like,
Yeah, there's no value. No, but LeRoy Neiman was probably they said the most talented artist in his whole class. He came to my son's bar mitzvah at Tavern on the Green, and he also was very decorative. But his things have kept some value. He was really talented. But again, I didn't look to sell LeRoy Neiman. It would be your husband that loves gambling in Las Vegas. He wanted a picture of him gambling in Las Vegas or at the horses. He'd have the famous jockey. And if you were in the horse business or your husband loved that jockey, you know, people would want it because it gave them an emotional lift.
Exactly.
And he was very talented.
how'd you feel about Jackson Pollock? Because I love a Jackson
Oh,
Pollock.
Jackson Pollock is great. I mean, he was such a disturbed individual. And the way he painted and flung that paint around with such a...
I mean, that was so of its time,
yeah.
like so.
Oh, he was fabulous. Unfortunately, he flung his life around. He wound up in a car crash. You know, he was drinking. He was tortured. And I don't think he actually made a lot of money when he was alive. I think it was after...
It's sad because so many talented
Yes.
artists, you know,
Yes.
who
Yeah.
whose paintings go for so much money, never
Yes.
really get to see their fame and fortune until
right.
after they're
Look
dead.
at Van Gogh.
Oh,
I mean, I always
tragedy.
say, if you go to a museum and they said you could walk out with one painting, you could take it home, which one would you take? I mean, I would take home a Van Gogh. I mean, with everything I've sold, That's the painter that I like to look at. I mean, you look at his paintings, and there's so much there. You know, between the color and the expression, the Postmaster General, the sunflowers, the Starry Night. I mean, they're beyond.
It's
really,
true.
They take
Yeah.
your heart. You know, they take. You look at things and you get an emotional reaction, and that's what you get. And I would say this to you: you don't have to invest in art. You don't have to buy art. But if you go to a museum, try to look at and feel the paintings and the painters that talk to you. And you can enjoy that, you know, in a wheelchair. I've seen old art dealers being wheeled around looking at art auctions that are coming up or museums, and you get a kick out of it. And it's not golf or tennis where you got tennis elbow, you can't move this, you can't move that, and you know, you have to give it up. You could keep this till you're 90. I came from Long Beach, Long Island. It was a middle class, regular public high school. Nobody was tutoring me. My mother wasn't spending the money. Actually, Larry Sutter, who tutored me in math and algebra so that I could graduate. We go to a cocktail party. I dragged my son along because I didn't want to go alone. My husband wouldn't go. And Guccione's there. And he was buying paintings, but whenever I
Bob Guccione from
from
Penthouse Magazine.
He's a big collector, and I knew he was going to be here. I said, Jason, come with me, because I want to have a man with me. I don't think he'll talk to me. So we go there, and then I just, you know, for some reason, I wasn't in the mood. I was a little tired. It was 6, 7 o'clock. My son said, look, you made me come. We're going over to talk to him. I go over, I talk to him, and guess who is his money manager who works in his firm? Larry Sutter.
Larry Sutter.
No.
Yes. I
No
said,
way.
oh my God, this guy got me so I could go to college. Without him passing algebra, I never would have gotten into any college. So that started funny, this, that, and I said, what do you want? Every time I send you something, it goes in the trash basket. I never get anything back. Yes, no, maybe. He said, oh, send me something, an offering. I said, you throw it in the garbage. I know it. He said, no, now I know you know Larry. I met you, your son. I'll look at it. I said, well, what do you want? He says, find me a Leger that's worth $2 million for $1 million, and I'll buy it. I said, okay, I'll look around. He says, I want it big. Give me like a 8-footer or something. Meanwhile, I come across months later an 8-foot painting that was cut out of its frame by a thief. And my friend, who's another art dealer, got it. And they restretched it. It was in perfect condition because they cut just around the edge. And I offered it to him, and he bought it. And we delivered it on St. Patrick's Day. And we could not drive the truck up Fifth Avenue to his townhouse because it was close to the St. Patty's Parade. So, I don't know, the guy driving the truck, his name was Mulligan or something. He was another Irishman. He and 2 people carrying this 8-foot painting to the townhouse to deliver it. My husband says, you know, this is like giving somebody a bag of money. I think it may have cost $2 million. I mix up the numbers, but it was worth double. Anyway, I said, look, the worst that happens if he doesn't pay, we'll get such public relations all over the world that he took the painting and didn't pay.
Yes.
You know, we got to just go with the flow. Anyway, it all worked out. He paid for the painting. He loved the painting. I went to visit it. And it's just funny how things cross over. Here, the guy that tutored me in algebra wound up working for him.
I love it.
Yeah, so I had a lot of interesting experiences. And again, you know, you're not going to go into a podcast or a makeup business or a food business because somebody you know is doing well at it. You're going to go into what you want to do. You have to go with what
makes you happy.
Well, not even happy, what you can't stop doing.
I agree.
You've given amazing advice through this whole podcast, but if you could just give one piece of entrepreneur real advice, what would that be?
I'd say you're going to ask people, should I do this? Should I become a hairdresser? Should I become a makeup person? Should I become a chef? Don't ask so much. If you love it and you're pretty good at it, just do it. Just start.
So I always say I'm successful because, you know, I grew up 50% determined, 50% delusional. And I think people get the wrong idea of delusional. I always say because I believed my own line of shit. I always thought I was, going to be famous. I always thought this, or, not that I'm so famous, but you know what I'm saying.
I agree 100%.
So what are you? What part delusional, what part determination?
I was very determined, and I just didn't let the fear factor in.
Exactly.
There's
That's the
something
delusional
here.
part, I think,
Just
sometimes.
don't let it in. What happens if they say no? Don't take rejection personally. It's that moment of rejection. Think how to make a no into a yes.
It's true. It's true. If you don't believe in yourself, and that's what I say, I think it was my delusion. Like, I was like, they can't hate me. They don't this, that, da, da. If you believe in yourself, and maybe, it's you believe your own hype. That's what no one else
As my mom
will.
would tell me when I was a little kid, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Exactly.
You'll still wake up tomorrow and you'll just start again.
That's right.
That's it.
And that's a
And you have to dream. Just like caviar dreamers. You have to dream what I
That's
would
what
love
I
to
say.
do.
Well, Michelle Rosenfeld, you are a delight, a pleasure, so
So nice to
fabulous.
share this
So
with you.
I love it.
Stories
So
are
inspiring.
incredible.
The stories are endless and incredible. Where do people find you?
Michelle Rosenfeld, www.michellerosenfeld.com.
MichelleRosenfeld.com.
Yeah, and it's there's a website, and so you can find me that way. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I would say this: if you do want to go into the art world, work in an art gallery or work at one of the auction houses. Get your feet wet and get your experience on somebody else's nickel. Even if they're paying you $10, $15 an hour, sit in that gallery, see what goes on, get the feeling, see if you really like it when you're there. I know people that went to work for lawyers, hated it, and stopped going to law school.
I agree.
You have to try it out and get your feet wet in whatever you really want to do.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I think, and have a mentor and learn the business.
Exactly.
And you know what
I
I
hope
love?
so.
At any age, you have goals and this and that. And
Well, right now I'm taking Spanish twice a week.
yeah, she takes Spanish
Yeah,
twice a week.
I spoke un poquito español in high school. 50 años que pasado, and I think what it's given me a much greater understanding of how difficult it is to really learn a language well. I think we look down on people that speak broken English, and I can tell you they're really looking down on me with my Spanish.
Well,
Yes.
thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Michelle. We love having you. You look fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caviar Dreamers. This was
Thank
very,
you.
very
So
informative. I hope
interesting.
you enjoyed it as much as we did. And you can find me at The Real Margaret Josephs as opposed to the fake one on Instagram, or my website, margaretjosephs.com. And you can find everything about Michelle there. We'll have links to her website
Exactly. Perfect.
and amazing pictures.
And you can find us here at Caviar Dreams Tuna Fish Budget. We have new episodes every Wednesday.
Thanks, guys.
Keep dreaming.
Keep dreaming, Caviar Dreamers.
Keep dreaming.